Hey everybody, how's it going? Forrest here, again with another installment of my complete analysis of all of J.S. Bach's chorale harmonizations. Today we're looking at Christus, der uns selig macht, which translates to Christ, by whose all-saving light. This is a really fascinating chorale. Before we get started, apologies for the typo here. These were E naturals in my MIDI file. They are actually F flats, and that makes a lot more sense when you spell them this way in the context of how the chorale is oriented harmonically. But yes, this is a very unusual chorale for a couple of reasons. One, the key signature and how it disagrees with the overall key of the chorale, and two, just the frequency in which we visit other keys and how they are traversed between. But we're going to get through the analysis once you sort of wade through the muck of trying to figure out, what key you're in and not being able to really rely on the key signature. You're oriented enough and it's okay. But starting things off, we have 3 flats in the key signature. We start on F major and we end on F major. So I reckon the overall tonality of this chorale is the very uncommon B flat minor. Definitely not a key we see very often in the chorales. Definitely not a chorale, or a key rather, that we start in as well. We sometimes see it modulated to throughout the chorale from like F minor, for example, but never have we seen it start on B flat. So I don't know exactly how common it is as a starting key. I'm going to hedge my bets and say it's relatively uncommon because we haven't seen it that much up until this point, and I don't think Bach's just going to start favoring this key. It's a little unusual, and there's a lot of chromaticism. For some reason, Bach only has 3 flats in the key signature when using, I guess, modern convention, we should have 5 flats in the key signature. So I wonder if there's a reason behind that. Typically, the most common key disagreement that we get between the key and the key signature is the key of C minor, where we only see 2 flats in the key signature. But here we're in the key of B flat, and by that same logic, we should see 4 flats in the key signature. And 4 flats in the key signature isn't something that is unfamiliar to Bach. We have seen chorales in the key of A flat. We have seen chorales in the key of F minor. So we're just going to get into the analysis. That's a long enough of an intro. So like I said, we start with F major. That is our 5 chord. And we immediately go to another 5 chord here. We don't need to reanalyze. We then get B flat, D flat, B flat, and F. That is our tonic triad, B flat minor. And then we get A, C, C, and F. Apologies, this is A flat, which is a minor dominant. We do see them from time to time. They're relatively uncommon, but we do see them from time to time. And the reason why I feel like this is a 5-6 chord is just because I hear this C as the chord tone. However, if you hear this D flat as the chord tone, you could make the argument that this is a 3-6 chord. I think with cases like this, it's entirely up to you, especially when the minor dominant is involved, but this passing figure does really feel like we are getting a minor dominant here, and it seems like the context in which we would see a minor dominant if there were one, and in this case there is. But afterwards we get G flat, E flat, B flat, and E flat, which is E flat minor in first inversion. That is our 4-6 chord. It's our subdominant. Then we have another passing tone here in the tenor before we get F, G flat, B flat, and D flat. I think this F is an accented non-chord tone, and it's really this E flat here that's our chord tone, which would turn this E flat minor triad into an E flat minor 7 chord in root position, so we could just change the figured bass. However, if you are looking on the downbeat and you look at this E as the non-chord tone, or E flat rather, this would be a G flat major 7 chord over F, or 6-4-2. It's entirely up to you how you analyze it. I think in the cadences especially, Bach is the most contrapuntal. This is a relatively tame cadence as far as counterpoint is concerned, but there is some room for interpretation here. There's lots of room for interpretation over all the chords in Bach that have passing tones that have the potential to change the identity of the chord, but I hear this as a big 4 chord being moved over the span of 2 beats. You might hear it in a different way. But also when we have a half cadence, which is the case with this cadence here where we end on 5, F, C, A natural, and C, 4 is typically the predominant chord, and that's what I think we have here. And I think there might even be an argument to be made that this is a Phrygian half cadence of sorts, because of the fact that I feel like this G flat's ultimate trajectory is F, and this other E flat minor 7 chord is just prolonging this resolution. So maybe this is a Phrygian half cadence, maybe it's not. I'll put it in parentheses, I'll say that because I'm not entirely sure, but there is an argument to be made that this is a Phrygian half cadence. Looking ahead, we have another half cadence in the key of B flat minor, no modulations just yet. Here we have another B flat minor triad, B flat, F, and D flat, that's our tonic. Then we have G flat, B flat, G flat, and E flat. Lots of flats. This is E flat minor over G flat, which is 4/6. And then we have D, E flat, A flat, and F, which is an interesting chord. Apologies, this is not E flat. I'm reading the wrong clef. D, C flat, A flat, and F. This is D fully diminished 7th, which is a secondary leading tone chord. 7/7 of 5, and kind of interestingly we get a I guess it's not really an anticipation, but we get a single change of tone between the 2 chords here, turning the next chord into D natural, B flat, A flat, and F, which is B flat 7 over D, which is just turning the chord into 5/6/5 of not 5 of 4. I made the same mistake in my notes. Apologies. This is not 5/6/5 of 5, but rather 5/6/5 of 4 and 7/7 of 4. I guess you could make the argument that the C flat is a suspension, but the difference between the 2 chords is this one tone, and the fact that they get their own a beat in the harmonic rhythm does seem significant. So I feel like we just have a double secondary dominant here. Really what matters though is the fact that there's not really a progression going on here. It's like we have the same idea of secondary dominance for 2 beats before we get to the eventual resolution, which happens on the next beat. E flat, B flat, G flat, and E flat is our 4 chord, E flat minor, and foreshadowing our first modulation, which is going to happen in a couple of beats. We then have B flat, F, and D flat. That's our tonic triad in root position, B flat minor, and then we cadence on F, A, F, and C. It's interesting to go from a chord with entirely flats, like E flat minor, to F, which has no flats, and still be in the same key. I think that that's kind of an interesting visual quirk. But moving ahead, we have our first cadence not in the key of B flat, or I'm making the argument it's not in the key of B flat. I'm saying this is a half cadence in the key of E flat minor, definitely an unusual key, but I think you can make the argument also that this is also a plagal cadence in the key of B flat minor. It ultimately depends on how you hear it. The keys are very similar. However, I think after racking my brain by hearing it so many times, I've convinced myself it's a half cadence, but I think both analyses are accurate depending on the stance you take or the way that you hear it. After our 5 chord, we go to B flat minor again, B flat, D flat, F, and B flat. It's our tonic triad. A, C, F, and C is 5/6, F major over A, and then we get another B flat minor chord here, B flat, F, and D flat. 1, 5, 6, 1, very normative progression, passing tone in the tenor before we get G flat, D flat, G flat, and B flat. This is our 6th chord, G flat major, which I reckon is also the point at which we go to the key of E flat minor. It is now our 3 chord, where we get a passing tone in the tenor again as well. We then have D natural, F, and B flat. That is a B flat major chord in first inversion, which would be 5/6 in the key of E flat major. Passing 7th in the melody, this B flat is a chord tone, so we don't need to mark it. And then we have E flat, B flat, E flat, and G flat, which is our tonic triad, E flat major. And then we cadence on B flat major, B flat, D natural, and F, which is our 5 chord. That's why I made the argument that this is a half cadence in the key of E flat, because this is just what makes sense. But if you did analyze this in the key of B flat major, this would, or sorry, B flat minor, B flat major wouldn't make much sense. This is a 6 chord going to a B flat major chord, which would be 5, 6 of 4, and then we go to 4, and then we go to 1. Like so. And this is the reason why this analysis just doesn't really work for me, just because of the fact that we are cadencing on a major tonic. It really just, there's some disagreement here between the melody. I feel like the melody does feel like it wants to resolve up to B flat, but when we see the 5th of the chord in the melody, I feel like I've just been conditioned to hear these as half cadences now. So I feel like this might be an accurate analysis, maybe some quasi-modality going on here with the minor 4 and the major 1. It's definitely a sound, it's definitely a mood, but I feel like saying it's in the key of E flat minor is much more accurate. So I'm actually going to go ahead now. I've convinced myself that I don't think this can be analyzed in the key of B flat minor as convincingly as I first thought. So I'm going to erase that for now. It also gives me more real estate on the bottom of the page for the cadence that happens near the end. So after our half cadence, we continue our journey in the key of E flat minor, very similar to our first journey in the key of B flat minor. We have B flat and B flat. Here we're going to have E flat and E flat. We start off by resolving where we're supposed to go: E flat minor, E flat, B flat, E flat, and G flat, which is our tonic. And then we get C flat, E flat, and A. Very similar to the progression we had in our second phrase. This is 4, 6. And then we have G natural, B flat, F natural, not F flat, sorry, not E natural, and B flat. This would be a G fully diminished 7th, so 7, 7 of 4, because G is the leading tone to A flat, and A flat is our 4 chord. And unlike our second phrase where we have the C flat's a neighbor tone in between the two B flats, here we continue the D flat, so we don't get a second configuration of a secondary dominant here. It just stays 7, 7 of 4. And then we go to A flat, C flat, E flat, and A flat, or A flat minor more specifically, not just A flat. We have a passing tone in the tenor before we have A natural, E flat, and G. Interesting chord here. This is an incomplete A flat fully diminished, or A natural fully diminished 7th chord. We're missing the 3rd, which is the least important of the contextual tones of a diminished 7th chord, because it's the 5th that gives the triad its context, tells us whether it's minor or diminished, is the difference between a diminished outer 5th and a perfect outer 5th. So the fact that the 5th is intact and the 7th is intact is enough context for us to fully analyze this chord. That would make this 5 of 5, which is, 7 of 5, apologies, which is just a substitute for 4. If we raise the scale degree, the root by half a step, we go from 4 to 7 of 5, just to substitute one for the other. And then we cadence, half cadence in the key of E flat minor with our 5 chord, B flat, D natural, and F. And I feel like it's starting to illuminate why, or the use of D natural is starting to illuminate Bach's choice of key signature here. Yes, D flat was very prevalent for the first 2 phrases, but now that we're in the key of E flat minor, Bach is not adding a 6th flat because the D is natural, and that's good. Natural D. Looking ahead, we have what I'm calling an imperfect authentic cadence in the key of G flat major. Very interesting key signature. Can't say that I've seen it yet in the chorale so far, so that's exciting, but it's relatively short-lived. I think you could also make the argument that it's a deceptive cadence in the key of E flat minor as well. It has deceptive qualities to it, or apologies, not in the key of E flat minor, but rather B flat minor, because G flat is the chord that we're cadencing on, and it does happen to be the 6. However, the more that I listen to it, again, I sort of convince myself that I feel like it's more of an imperfect authentic cadence. It almost has subdominant cadence vibes, where you go from It feels like you're cadencing on 4, but you're not actually cadencing on 4, or maybe you are, who knows. It feels like this, we're swapping the perspective to G flat very suddenly, and the placement in the phrase where the modulation happens makes it feel like a surprise. But afterwards, I think we get a direct modulation to B flat minor here. We go from B flat major directly to B flat minor, and if that's not a direct modulation, I don't know what is. We have a direct juxtaposition of D flat and D natural, one beat after the other. They're only a half step apart too. The tenor is singing very close to the alto here, going pretty significantly into alto range here. But we're now firmly in the key of B flat minor. We then have C, C, E flat, and A. That is A diminished over C, which is 7/6. A is our leading tone in the key of B flat minor. And then we have D flat, B flat, F, and B flat, which is our tonic triad in first inversion, 1-7-6-1. Very common pattern in Bach, one of his staple chord progressions, and also the other way as well, where he takes a chord and bridges the gap between the inversion of that chord with a chord that's a diatonic step below it in first inversion, 1-7-6-1 or 4-3-6-4-6 or 5-4-6-5-6. Those are all permutations that are possible. We then have E flat, B flat, G flat, and C natural, which is C minor 7 flat 5 in first inversion. So Bach loves 2-6-5 chords, especially as we're closing in on the cadence. And this is where the deceptive nature, sorry, I had to move my microphone, the deceptive nature of the cadence kicks in. We start off our cadence with F, B flat, F, and D flat, which is a tonic triad in second inversion. There's nothing really unusual about this here. We would expect a 5 chord to come after this, and if you look at the upper voices, we do have a 5 chord, F and C, with an anticipation in the melody. But this A flat here, it's a non-chordal, it's a 7th, and it's a non-chord tone, but we have D flats in the lower voices. So we have D flat, F, and C natural, which is very unusual. In the key of... Oh, you know what? I have this wrong in my notes. This would have to be a C flat in order for us to be in the key of G flat. So I'm going to change my mind here and say that this is, in fact, a deceptive cadence. Yeah, that's why it sounds that way. This is a C natural. Let me go ahead and double check and see if that's actually the case. We have D flat. Yeah, that is a C natural. This would make this a D flat major chord, or a major 7. Or you could analyze this as a 1-6 chord, because if you look at this B flat as the chord tone, we have B flat, D flat, D flat, and F, which is just B flat minor in first inversion. I hear this as a D flat major chord though, which would be 3-7. Very unusual progression. Also because the 1-6-4 chord is going somewhere that we wouldn't expect. It's going to 3, and I guess 3 and 5 are relatively close to one another. They do share the F and the C in this case. And I guess, yeah, they share the F and the C, but the C happens to be the 7th in this case, and the difference between the two chords would be A natural versus A flat, as well as this D flat. So we have a 3-7 chord here going to a 6 chord, G flat, D flat, G flat, and B flat, which is our 6 chord in the key of B flat minor. Very unusual. I had this as a 5-1 cadence in the key of G flat major, which doesn't quite make sense now because the C natural would need to be a C flat in order for this to be an incomplete 5-7 chord. So definitely an unusual cadence. We do have the bass movement here of 5 going to 1, 3 does want to go to 6, but what makes this feel deceptive isn't necessarily because of the fact that we're ending on 6. I feel like what's more deceptive is the fact that 1-6-4 is not being followed by a 5 chord, so the deception actually doesn't even really come in the form of the final cadential chord, which is definitely fascinating. I'm glad I checked that, and definitely reaffirms the time I take to analyze the chorale beforehand, because the second look is always more accurate. But afterwards, I do think we're going to the key of D flat for our next couple of beats, where this G flat chord is now our 4 chord. It's our subdominant in the key of D flat. This progression just sounds very quintessential D flat major to me. It just sounds like a major chord progression. We have F, F, A flat, and D flat, which is our tonic triad in first inversion, D flat major over F. Then we get A flat, C, A flat, and E flat. With the C naturals here, this would be a 5 chord in the key of D flat major. And then we have our D flat major chord in root position, D flat, A flat, and F. Tonic triad root position. And the more that I look at this, this could actually be a subdominant cadence in the key of, no, it couldn't. I'm not being accurate here. This would have to be a C flat. But it does sound like a subdominant cadence. I think it has mostly to do with the bass, but it's unusual. This is an unusual cadence. I'm gonna have to put that in my notes. Passing 7th in the bass here, we then get B flat, D flat, B flat, and F, which is our 6 chord in the key of B flat minor, and we have a passing 7th in the bass as well. And I think this is the beginning of the modulation zone. I think we can modulate, actually we can modulate as early as wherever, because of the fact that B flat minor and D flat major are enharmonically, they share the same pitch collection before you add in the leading tone. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this is where we modulate to the key of B flat minor. You can modulate really at any point. You can call this B flat 3. You could even say this whole phrase was in the key of B flat minor if you heard it that way. I honestly don't think that that's how it sounds, but the modulation's coming soon. This is just the way that I hear it. But afterwards we get G flat, E flat, B flat, and E flat, our good old E flat minor chord, which is 4/6, passing tone in the tenor, and then we get F, B flat, and D flat for the alto. Oh no, the alto and the tenor are an octave apart. Are they? No, this is not a B flat. This is a G flat. I made the same mistake in my notes again. So we have F, G flat, B flat, and D flat. And we have another one of these chords that we saw earlier. Where is it? There's the potential for it to be 6/4/2. And I think that we can analyze this as a 6/4/2 chord. That's fine. But I think actually this F is an accented non-chord tone. And by doing that, I think this D flat's also an accented non-chord tone. We could make the argument that this is 6/4/2 going to, I don't know why I didn't see this earlier. Oh no, it's not the same thing here. Here we have a little something different. I'm actually not going to mark those as accented non-chord tones, so I'm going to walk that back, and I'm going to say that that's actually a 6/4/2 chord, but the way that it's being contextualized now is with the notes on the offbeat, or on the and of the harmonic rhythm. We have E flat, G flat, B flat, and C, which is C minor 7 flat 5 in first inversion. Bach loves 2/6/5 chords, and then we cadence, half cadence on F major, F, F, A, and C. And the reason why I walk this back is because 6/2/5 is a normative progression, and I feel like it also sort of separates the idea of 4 and 2. In my notes I had it where D flat and F were accented non-chord tones. I felt like there was some type of symmetry between what was happening in the first phrase and what's happening in this phrase because of the 6/4/2 chord and how the bass has this neighbor tone, and I feel like this E flat is the chord tone here. However, we don't have the complete context to make the first iteration of this chord a 2 chord, whereas here with the alteration of both the D flat to C and the F to E flat, we can now actually extrapolate a 6/2 progression out of what's happening on this beat. I think that's actually really interesting that one voice has the power to do that. Yeah, my analysis would be, I feel like maybe this is more in line with the way that I would look at the chord progression, but I think if you analyzed the F and the D flat as accented non-chord tones the same way that this F is analyzed as an accented non-chord tone, and you just called this 2/6/5, I think that would be accurate as well. But again, this could be analyzed maybe as a Phrygian half cadence for the same reason, because I feel like this G flat's real trajectory is this F, and this E flat is just a, or not even just this F, but this F rather, and this E flat is purely decorative, or it's also contributing to the chord progression, but it is a subdivision of the rhythm. Sorry, there was a lot to talk about there, and I didn't expect to talk about that much, but closing in on our penultimate phrase, we have another half cadence in the key of E flat minor, but we're going to stay in B flat minor for the first couple of beats at least. We have D flat, B flat, F, and B flat, which is B flat minor in first inversion. We're seeing a similar phrase to what we had here in the key of D flat. We then have F, A, F, and C, which is our 5 chord in root position, and if you are looking backwards and looking at this progression here, we have the same thing here, B flat, F, and D flat, tonic triad, 1, 6, 5, 1, 1, 6, 5, 1. And here we have some passing tones as well, which adds some variety to the chord progression. This would be F minor, A flat, C, F, and C, which is like a passing 5-6 chord. We saw a passing 5-6 chord earlier as well, so I feel like the likelihood of this being a passing minor dominant, especially with the bass moving and 2 other voices moving as well, is likely. We then have G flat, D flat, G flat, and B flat, which is G flat major, a 6th chord, and same thing here. I think this is the gateway into the key of E flat, so we're having a modulation occur on the same metric location as it did in the previous phrase, but this G flat chord is now our 3. We also saw G flat as our gateway to E flat earlier as well, which is interesting. And the tenor was actually doing the same thing over the course of the 2 beats, going from B flat up to E flat here. Okay, then we have D natural, F, F, and B flat, which is our 5 chord in first inversion, B flat, major over D. We actually have the exact same cadence here, if I'm not mistaken. They're identical, so we're seeing a harkening back to the 3rd phrase here, 5-6 going to E flat, B flat, E flat, and G flat, which is our tonic triad, E flat minor, and then we cadence on 5, B flat, D natural, and F, 5 chord. Okay, looking ahead, we do not end on an authentic cadence. We end on a half cadence in the key of B flat minor, but I think we go there via the key of G flat major, which is very interesting, the fact that we get this departure away. So we go from 5 to 1, E flat, B flat, E flat, and G flat. It's our tonic triad. Bach has been making a habit of starting each phrase with the resolution of the half cadence and extending the idea of resolution beyond the ending of the phrase. And he sort of broke that here where we changed keys, but still 5 going to 1, 5 going to 1, 5 going to 1. Here we have 4 going to 1, 5 going to 1, 5 going to 1. It's a harmonic motive that Bach, not just in this chorale, but he's been doing over several chorales now. But this E flat chord is going to be our gateway to G flat major. It is now our 6th chord, and then we get D flat, F, and A flat, which is our tonic, or sorry, not our tonic, our 5 chord in root position, D flat major, and that takes us to G flat major, G flat, D flat, G flat, and B flat, which is our tonic triad in the key of G flat major, passing tone on the bass, B flat, D flat, G flat, and B flat, which is just taking the chord and inverting it. So we'll just change the figure bass here, and we get another passing tone here before we get D flat, F, and A flat, which is D flat major. That's our 5 chord, and we're in a modulation zone here, so I feel like we can say that the modulation occurs at any particular point. I'm going to say the modulation does occur here, though. We're moving back to the key of B flat minor, and D flat is our 3 chord as well, so the dominant's turning into the mediant in the key of B flat. Pretty cool. Passing 7th here as well, which is interesting. Actually, with the C flat here, I might walk that back and say that we are modulating later, and say that this is more of a deceptive progression in the key of G flat major, where we're going from 5 to 6. E flat, B flat, E flat, and G flat, which is our 6th chord, which also happens to be our 4 chord in the key of B flat. I didn't notice that C flat there originally. That C flat's interesting because of the fact that we would expect C natural in the key of B flat, and I don't think that there's anything really modal going on here, especially because we don't have any real reason to believe that. You know, we were coming from the key of G flat. This C flat is not chromatic to the key of G flat, so why not just say the modulation happens later? Maybe there's less of a zone than I thought. But after our 4 chord, we get F, A, E flat, and F, which is our 5-7 chord, F7 over nothing actually, it's just in root position. I just feel like I see 5-6-5 chords more commonly than 5-7 chords, so I've been conditioned to say that. But I feel like this is where the cadence really happens, and the next 2 chords are somewhat, I guess, functionally ornamental, but yeah, regardless, this B flat, this D flat over the F makes this a 1-6-4 chord before we cadence on F. F, A natural, C, and F, which is our 5 chord. Add a little bit of a bracket there as well, because 1, 6, 4, and 5 are often paired together. Not always, like we saw earlier, and that is going to be the end of today's analysis. I was very confused. If you've watched my videos in the past, you know that I'm not the strongest reader, so I really have to be careful about the choices that I make, and I rely very heavily on the key signature, as I imagine most people do, but I really rely on the key signature, so I had to kick my brain into extra gear to compensate for the fact that not only are we once removed from the key of the chorale, but we are twice removed from the key of the chorale, because we're expecting 2 extra flats in the key signature when we are instead missing them. But justifiably so, it makes sense that Bach omitted them, because he is exploring many keys, and often what flats would have to be naturalized later on are just omitted from the key signature. And I think that that's interesting in regards to what role key signatures actually play. Are they really a key signature that indicate to us what the key is, or is it just a means of trying to get away with as little writing as possible? And by little writing, I mean just as much engraving on the page. I feel like in many cases the key signature is a means to omitting as many accidentals as possible, but in this case, where Bach had a very expressive chorale with lots of different keys, lots of different minor keys, maybe using a different key signature was the most efficient. Who knows? It'd be interesting to try this with different key signatures to see just how many accidentals you could remove from the chorale. But if that was the case, why didn't Bach just make his own key signatures that didn't follow the convention, like where we have like B flat, E flat, and D flat, for example, but no A flat? Because if we're in the key of B flat minor, why not just leave the A natural in the key signature? Maybe that was just beyond what was expected of him or what was conventional at the time. Definitely be unusual to see on a score of today, so I don't know. But that's enough to talk about. I feel like I've talked at length a lot through my process of walking back and correcting my notes, which I'm very happy to have done, because this analysis I'm very proud of. But with all that being said, if you are interested in following me along on this journey to analyze all of Bach's chorale harmonizations, feel free to subscribe to the channel. You can hit the notification icon as well if you'd like to be notified of my daily upload. You could also like the video if you enjoyed the video. It would mean that more of my content gets out there and we make a bigger community of people who enjoy Bach or just enjoy analysis in general. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching the video and supporting the channel by doing so. I look forward to tomorrow's analysis, and I hope you take care.